the first thing I think I want to talk about is what it's like being a car guy without car friends. So this isn't to say that I don't have friends. I've got plenty of amazing friends, but if you, like me, are a bit more into cars than the average person, then you've probably had variations of this conversation where people ask you things like, maybe they ask you, but people ask for your opinion when it comes to car related things, whether it's find a mechanic, what car to choose, or they tell you that they saw a really interesting car. Oh, I saw a really cool car, you'd love it. And I say, okay, so what car was it then? Tell me, what was it? What make was it? What manufacturer? I don't know, but it was black, it was low, and it was fast. And then they kind of smile at me like I should just sort of know what car it is based on that description. And then my heart begins to sink a little bit at that point. But what's kind of funny about this is, for me, I'm someone that's always been, not always, but for a while, I've been trying to find a group of like car friends, or just people that I can hang out with that are really into cars. And so one of these, I would go to different meets and try to meet up with different groups of people and try and kind of like find these friends. But what's always interesting to me, or what seems to be continually interesting to me, is that most people that I meet at a meet seem to have met their friends outside of cars. And I seem to, wherever I seem to go, I don't seem to make sort of car related friends or mates. I kind of meet people, but I'm maybe slightly awkward in nature. And so what I find is that, you talk to people, maybe meet up with them, and then it's a bit weird because aside from cars, everything else about being friends with them kind of doesn't really make the most sense. Maybe they've just come from a completely different walk of life, or they're just into things that you're not really interested in. And so you kind of bond on the car stuff, but then the other stuff is just maybe people that you wouldn't naturally come across in your day-to-day life. It reminds me of the time that I went to Edmonton, and so there used to be this car meet in Edmonton. It was in a car park, and I wish I could remember where it is. If I can remember where it is, then I'll put it on screen or something. But what was interesting is that the first time I went, I took my girlfriend, who's now my wife, but at the time she was my girlfriend. I took her with me, and she absolutely hated it. But that's a different story. But so I went to this car park in Edmonton, and it's weird because you look at things like Fast and the Furious, and you're never really sure what to expect the first time you go to a car meet. But it's like people kind of, this idea of like people like kind of flexing and just sort of showing off their cars and stuff is really, it's really weird when you see it in person. Like when you watch it on a video, it seems cool. Some guy doing like drifts and donuts and burnouts and stuff. But then when you're at a car meet and someone just randomly, I don't know, lowers their car or has their car riding on three wheels. I saw that with a Fiesta. Crazy. I know. Fiesta had air ride suspension and it was like on three wheels somehow. But yeah, you see like people just suddenly doing a burnout. Like in the video, when you're watching videos, it seems like, okay, it kind of makes sense, but it's not an organized thing. It's just someone randomly deciding, hey, I'm going to do a burnout, or I'm going to start revving my engine. And it's funny being there and being in that environment and experiencing that versus what it kind of seems like when I used to watch it on videos. Anyway, at this car meet in Edmonton, what was interesting was that they had inside the car park, only certain cars were kind of like allowed to park in there, or only certain, it was more like the sort of showy kind of cars that were parked in there. But what was even more interesting is that in this car park, people basically take it in turn to do donuts in the middle of the car park. And, you know, I respected the people that parked around the edge because I would be very conscious of, amateur sort of drifters, or who I assume to be amateur drifters. Maybe they're pros, I don't know. But these sort of seemingly amateur kind of people, just drifting round and round in this car park. There wasn't really a lot of runoff space, so it was interesting because if you do get it wrong, then you're going into a bunch of cars. But yeah, I remember what really sticks out in my head about this meet, aside from the fact that I didn't really make any new friends there, because making friends at a car meet is really hard. I don't know, maybe I'm quite awkward, maybe that's it. But you kind of talk to people, and then it's like, hey, you like cars too? Just, okay, yeah. But anyway, so there's this guy that I'm speaking to that I spoke to when I was there, and I'm pretty sure he had like a one of those rubber bands that people have around their wrists. I can't remember what they're called. That was like a Livestrong one that a lot of people were wearing at that point in time. What is it? I can't remember what the name is, but one of those rubber wristbands that support some sort of cause. But this guy had one made, and it was called it was like King of the Ring or something like that. or Drift King. It was some version of King of the Ring or Drift King of the Ring or something to that effect. But it's funny because he basically got this thing printed up and it just seemingly self-appointed himself the King of Drifting in this area, which is like this car park, which I'm guessing obviously wasn't owned by him or anyone he knew, because I think the next time that I tried to go back to that meet, which was maybe a couple of months later, somebody had put sleeping policemen, and so sleeping policemen was what they're called in the UK, but they're speed bumps everywhere else. So someone basically put speed bumps inside the car park. Now, that might not sound unusual to you, but what was unusual about this is that the car park wasn't that big. So it was like, I want to say 50 square meters, but I'm probably getting that wrong. But it wasn't a particularly big car park. But it's quite square. But what was really interesting about the speed humps they put in was that they basically put them around in a circle. So rather than sort of speed humps being laid at sort of perpendicular to the road, they'd put the speed bumps in the worst place possible, or to make drifting as hard as possible. And I think when I went, someone had obviously tried, but it's like it's basically just ruined what was this guy's kind of drift pit. And yeah, that was really, I don't know, that was really funny to me. But I do find just this idea of being like a car guy and trying to meet other car people quite interesting, because yeah, you think, oh, I'm really into cars, you're really into cars, and then you talk to somebody and maybe they're not as into it as you are, or they're kind of like, yeah, I'm more here for the sort of the vibe and stuff, or I've just come with my mates, and you're trying to like meet new people. It really, yeah, it really, I don't know, it's a really weird experience. Really keen to hear what your experiences might be. So please do comment in the chat or comment wherever I end up posting this about your experiences with trying to meet other car guys. I think it's quite an interesting thing in general, because like the car community can be really amazing at times. And so I've been on the forums and like you kind of see people who have like massive personalities on forums, and then you meet them in real life and sometimes it can be a bit disappointing. It's a massive user at one point, a power user you could say, not necessarily a power poster, but definitely read a lot on the TT forum. And so a part of me does kind of feel like that time of having I don't know, do people still go on forums the way that they used to? Maybe because I don't have a car that I'm as into at the moment anymore. I've got a Golf, by the way, nothing special, it's Mark 5. But maybe it's because I don't I'm not as into my car and modifying it as I used to be. But it seems as though forums have died a little bit. And yeah, just as I spoke about in the last episode of sort of max power, that kind of going away, I do wonder if like the celebration, so to speak, of sort of grassroots car modification, or people who modify, cars that they drive on a daily basis, or cars that are their own personal cars that aren't maybe just show cars, or aren't just some sort of financed Audi or Volkswagen with a tune and maybe some nice wheels, possibly with some air ride. I do feel like a lot of modifications kind of gone that way, where it's kind of lost a bit of its je ne sais quoi. Am I saying that we should bring back big body kits? Not necessarily, but I do kind of miss the days of going to a meet and seeing people with really kind of take pride in their expression or their interpretation of what they feel like a cool car looks like. Sometimes I'd agree, sometimes I don't agree, but I think I always appreciate the fact that you kind of go to these meet and you meet these characters and people that kind of have done interesting things to their cars, and that they aren't just that everything isn't just the same, isn't just a cookie cutter kind of approach.